Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to look at the 1 to 6 player game Red Rising. This is published by Jamie Stegmaier and Alexander Schmidt. Now, this game, you're going to be entering a futuristic dystopia, and this is going to be based on the novels written by Pierce Brown. You're going to try to get the most influence and win the game through having the best card combinations in your hand. Now, when we go down to the table here, I'm just going to show you how to play the regular game. Note that there is also going to be an autonoma version of this for solo, just like most of all of other games from Stonemaier Games. So let's go down to the table here. I'll give you a general overview of how the game plays, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so this is a game of Red Rising. Real quick, we're going to go over setup. What you're going to do is each player is going to get 10 of these little tokens here in their color, and they're going to get one of their little ships. You'll place your little ships on the fleet track at the 0 point. And if you're playing with 2 players, only 2 players, then you're going to take 3 cubes from a color not being played and place it here in the Institute. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to place out 2 cards in each of these locations, placing the new one over top of the previous one, but being able to see the point score and its banner. Now, at any point in the game, players are allowed to look at these cards. They're not hidden information when they're covered over, but just make sure you put them back in the same order because it's very, very important. All right. So once we have that out and everyone has their cubes, you're going to determine the first player. The first player is going to get this moon, and they will keep it for the duration of the game. So let's say it's a red player here. That is going to be used to remember who is the first player, because when the end game is triggered, which we'll go over in a little bit, you want to ensure that everyone gets equal amount of turns. So the player to the person to the right of the first player will be the one that takes the last turn. Okay, so to start the game, everyone's going to get 5 cards. So you're going to deal out 5 cards to each player. Now, these 5 cards are going to be the 5 cards that you're going to have for the entire game. Now, there's a few effects in the game that'll give you more cards, and we'll get into the scoring portion of that in a minute. But in essence, you're going to take a look at your 5 cards. There's going to be a couple things that you're going to want to pay attention to. One is, like, this is a really cool point card right here, for point wise. And 2 is what the bottom condition is right here, because these are when the game ends, you're going to reveal the cards in your hands and you're going to score them up. This bottom row is what's going to trigger on your cards for scoring. This top row right here is what you get when you deploy, which we'll show in a second. So throughout this game, you're actually trying to get the best hand possible and score the most points. And a lot of these will have these banners on the bottom. And we're not going to go through any of them really, but just know that they have the banners on the bottom here, and these will affect your score at the end of the game. So you always have to pay attention to those and try to maximize it. And they also have like little hints over here because they'll match with this, unless we're on it's negative 15 points unless with or on Vergen or plus. So these are the 3 little character pictures right here that you're going to be looking at to try to get in your hand. So you'll get those 35 points and stuff like that. So basically in the game, you're only going to do one of 2 different actions. In the game, you're either going to lead or scout. When you lead, you're simply going to deploy a card, and you're going to take a look at this action right here, because this is your deploy action. So when you deploy, you pick any one of these rows and you deploy it to it by placing it here, and you get your deploy action. The next thing you get to do is you get to pick up a card from a row that you did not deploy in. So that's a very big thing to keep in mind, that the difference between where you deployed and what's remaining. So if you have an action that deploys another card, that's another row you can't pick from when you pull your card back. So when you pull your card back, you get the card, you put it in your hand, but then you get to view that location's effect. And they're pretty straightforward. The Jupiter action is you just get to move your ship up the fleet track, which at the end of the game it's going to be worth however many points are underneath your ship. So you can get up to 43 points, which you can't really quite see there. Mars action, which is one I took, you will get to pull one of these gems out, and these are worth 3 points each at the end of the game, and you just keep them. So the next action is you can take the Luna action, and when you take the Luna action, you're going to get this. And actually, something I did forget, which is extremely important, at the beginning of the game, you're going to randomly deal out one of these tiles. So I'm sorry I forgot about that part, and the rest go back in the box. And each player is going to have a cool thing that occurs. So when I take this trophy here, I will get to do my action here, and it is whenever you gain the sovereign token, which is this guy right here. It's a really cool sovereign token. Even if you've already had it, which is true, you get to place one influence on the institute. So my thing will, I get to place one influence on the institute. And you're looking for majority on here, so you're looking to have the most. If you ever place all 10 of your cubes on the institute, you can still take these actions. The same thing as if you go to the end of the fleet track. You just won't be able to place any more stuff on the institute or go up any further on the fleet track. The last one is the institute. You just get to put one of your cubes on the institute if you get pulled from there. That is how the lead action works. The scout action is you're going to reveal the top card of the deck and place it on any location, covering all but its name, color, and core value. So basically, if you already like your hand, on your turn, all you're really going to do is just take one of these and place it where you want. So you look at that card and you can place it here. So that's your turn. So those are the two things you can do on your turn. Now a couple notes. The first player, if you're going to basically pick it however you want to choose, except for if someone ends up to be the Apollo player, they're automatically the first player all the time. The other note is, when I said that you can deploy a card and then you pick from one of these locations, you can also just pick a random card from here from the top. And if you pick a random card from the top here, something special occurs. You get to roll this die. Now the die has the faces that match each of these locations here, so you get those benefits. That's pretty straightforward. Now there's a couple different ones. Like right here, you're going to actually be able to remove from game, which doesn't actually remove it from the game because you actually interact with it with different cards in the game. So I will be able to, let's say I want to do that, and I set it off to the side. Now there are cards in the game that get bonuses or do different things with these cards that are over off into the side. So you definitely want to keep that in mind of what you're actually exiling, seeing if you can actually use that to your benefit. The other one that's odd, it's going to be the same thing, is going to be this little eye right here. This little eye here will let you draw the top card from the deck, and then you can deploy it, or you can not deploy, you can place it in a new location. So it's not deployed, but it's placed. So that's what you get with a die if you draw from the top of that deck. Okay, so that's it. You're going to continue trying to make the best hand possible. And the game is going to end when 3 conditions are met, or one player has 2 of them. And those conditions are simply 7 influence cubes from one color into the Institute. One of the fleet tracks reaches 7. And when someone has 7 of these helium gems. Now, again, if someone doesn't have 2 of those things, all 3 of those have to be met before the game ends. And remember that the play will continue until it gets to the player to the right of the first player, so everyone has an equal amount of turns. At the end of the game, you're going to score up the cards in your hand, and you're going to score up some bunch of other stuff. And we're going to go over that now. You're going to get this really cool score pad here, where you're going to just basically go straight down through it. So basically, you put your name in up on the top here. You're going to want to go through all of your cards and your victory points. So go ahead and you play your cards, do your victory points, tally that all up. You're then going to get your fleet score, which is just going to be right underneath your ship. You're going to get 3 victory points for every helium that you have. You're going to get 10 victory points if you have the sovereign token. You're going to get either 4, 2, or 1 points based on majority for the institute. So whoever has the most on there gets 4, whoever has second, 2, and the least 1. And then there's cards in the game that do let you have over the 5 cards. And you will lose 10 victory points per card over 7. So you'll total that all up, and whoever has the highest score wins. Now, I did go over this really, really quickly because I just wanted to show you how simple the game is to teach and to play. So, as you noticed, I did miss stuff and had to jump back. But basically, game is really easy to teach. Player with the highest amount of points at the end of the game is going to win. The biggest focus in the game is going to be able to maximize the points in your hand. That is going to be the strategy in the game. You do get a decent amount of points from the fleet track, and you can get a decent amount of points from the helium. But really, it's in the cards. So just keep that in mind for the strategy in the game. And let's go ahead back up the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so I know I went over that really quickly. I was trying to just show how quickly that can be taught. And of course, I went a little too quickly, but that is how you're going to set up the game and how you're going to go through the flow of the game. Now, with this game, which I didn't explain, there's going to be a lot of interaction and a lot of stuff with the either scoring of the cards in your hand. So you're going to want to pay attention to those a lot because that's where the bulk of your points are going to come. And in the deploy effects and where you deploy to really matter. So, and there's a lot of diversity to these cards. I mean, every card is different. So replayability in this game is strongly encouraged. You can get better and better at the game by knowing about what's out there and know how many of each of the different casts cards there are and what values they have and what happens. And when I showed you where you exile those cards, you put them off to the side there where you can remove them from the game, where those become really important, knowing how the other cards you have interact with them. So this game really encourages replayability, and you can get a lot out of the game from that. But on the flip side, it's still extremely, extremely easy to teach to new players. So people can get into the game pretty quickly. Now, there's a couple cards I didn't go over in the setup there that you probably will notice when you play through the first game that you want to show to other players so that they're aware. We're not going to go over those really, but just know that for experienced players, they should probably explain a couple different things that they've noticed through the game so the other players can be aware. Never underestimate the helium in the game. The helium can add up really quickly, so always watch the guy that's doing that. But the points, you can still override it most of the time with the points in your hands. And this game, you can never run out of helium. I didn't mention that. You can just use whatever you want as a substitute. Just know that's an indefinite amount of resources for that. However, with the Institute, you can only have up to 10 influence. But again, like for the Institute or the fleet track, which you can only go to the top portion of that, if you can still perform actions that require that and just not move those up. So overall, I really, really like this game. It is a very good hand management game. You are really invested in what other players do, just merely in the fact that you're looking to see what cards are uncovered that you can use potentially in your hand. You may want to wait, and then you can take that action where you're just going to plop a card from the top of the deck, or maybe hope that that's a card you need, or you're completely satisfied with your hand. So there's a lot to this game. So if you're looking for a fun, easy to teach game that can have a lot of depth through replay with it, you definitely want to check out Red Rising. Or if you're a fan of the Pierce Brown series, you probably definitely want to check out Red Rising. So that's my thoughts on the game. Thank you for watching.